Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for February 1st, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, good enough, and welcome everybody. We're going to introduce ourselves. I'm going to start from my far left and ask somebody on my right to turn the,
I just did.
thank you
Michael
very much.
Donlin.
Richard Tripp.
Crystal Morin, Secretary.
I'm Lynn Perkins, Chair.
Craig Corbett, Vice Chair.
Donald Burgess, alternate. Oh, no, member.
Jim Dietzel, I'm an alternate.
Brandon.
There we go. They were changing disguises, and we have Mr. Mackey is here, who has no disguise, and code enforcement, and our clerk, Ginny Rio, will be in the back taking minutes. Just a note that these proceedings are recorded and audio-video recorded. In the event of an emergency, please exit to the rear of the room, and if there's an emergency, don't use the elevator. Someone will get to you, and we're scheduled to terminate at 10 this evening. So we'll call up the first case, which is Steve Pasco, owner of FTG Development, LLC. And this is case number 24-102. Gentlemen, we ask that our protocol is that you read the application as it's presented, cover page, and then the 5 criteria. And for the record, we'll barrage you with questions, and then we'll get some public input. Okay? Great. Good evening.
All right. My name's Nick Gregsack from Gregsack & Sons.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
My name's Nick Gregsack from Gregsack & Sons.
Thank you.
So a variance of the terms of Article 6, Section 165-49B1, A, C, G1.A.
Thank you.
Yep. Location of property, 6 West Broadway, tax map number 30024. Proposal, convert 8 existing commercial spaces on 2nd floor to 8 one-bedroom dwelling units. Okay. The 5 points of interest. First, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because it will be providing much-needed dwelling units to downtown Derry. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because it is going to provide more residential dwelling units in downtown Derry, which will promote a better community. Substantial justice is done because granting the 8 additional residential dwelling units will improve the general public accessibility to housing in Derry. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished because no change to existing building use with the existing residential units already in place. Little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. For purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property due to lot size and density requirements constraining the increase in dwelling units downtown. The proposed use is a reasonable one. The proposed unit conversions are reasonable as it maintains the existing building footprint and mixed-use function and does not diminish the existing value of surrounding properties. If the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if and only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, The property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable reasonable use of it. The density and unit size requirements limit dwelling units in the traditional business overlay district.
You're free to elaborate beyond the script. Go ahead if you'd
Okay.
like to say anything else beyond that.
Okay. So 6 West Broadway is a 4-story mixed-use existing building with commercial on the first 3 levels and 8 residential units on the top level. The proposal is to take the 3rd level of commercial units and turn them into 8 residential units. We're gonna maintain the existing demising walls that exist, and it's essentially carrying down the unit layouts from above to the level below.
What wall was that again?
Demising, unit demising, unit to unit separation walls.
Okay. Are these fire separations structural or?
They're not structural. It's a steel girder
Okay.
structure system in there. So there's a superstructure in there that handles the load capacity.
Okay. Go ahead, I didn't mean to throw you off.
In addition, the demising walls are the fire separation in
They
between.
are, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And the units on, I call it the 2nd floor because I don't count the 1st floor where the loaner's closet is. The walls are identical in place to the 3rd floor, which is the residential. So there's no structural work being done at all on the units.
To the building, yeah.
Correct.
Just more partition walls, I suspect.
Partitions,
Yeah,
yes.
and then
Finishes and
yeah.
kitchens and bathrooms.
your plumbing and electrical adaptation.
Electrical most likely will be upgraded, not upgraded, the electrical wiring will be modified because the walls, the
Sure.
interior walls will be modified. The sprinkler system, the way we look at it, it's going to be very minimal tweaking ahead here or there to get them in place to meet the new design. Plumbing, we're going to tie into existing stacks and run branches off of those. So it's a lot of work to be done, but it's not a huge undertaking with regards to most of the trades.
Yeah. Again, the 4 stories, you have a basement and then 3 above grade, is
So-
that correct?
Finished basement is the loaner's closet.
Okay,
They occupy the whole basement. There's an electric utility room on the 1st floor, ground level. So you have commercial basement, the storefronts, tattoo, hair salon, et cetera, on the 1st level. And then the 2nd floor is the proposed change.
and what's on the top floor? You say there's already apartments there?
Residential,
Yeah.
yes.
Are those single bedroom?
1-bedroom units, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They're I would consider them like micro 1-bedrooms.
Yeah,
They're not big by any means. They're about 500 to 570 square feet max, maybe.
how long have those units been there?
Those have been there since the building was put up.
I see, and how old is this building?
Built in 1980, according
Okay.
to the assessor.
Got it. And, some of the dialogue, I realize, goes beyond the board's purview, but it's always nice to see how you're going to put it together and
Yes.
whatnot. Let me rest if anybody else has any questions from the board. Mr. Burgess?
I like the floor plans, I really do. The only issue I really think about now is the parking. You don't have enough parking spots at the moment. What are you gonna do? It's tough to find parking downtown in Derry, period,
Yes. So there's a project that is, I'm not sure at what point it is right now. that's going on behind my building. There's also going to be a parking swap if that deal goes through, to increase my parking from 16 to 32.
Oh, that'd be
Spaces.
great.
So I have 16 spaces now. We're also going to locate some local parking options for these new units.
Mr. Mackey, does this have to go before planning?
If approved, yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I did see that on our notes. I missed that. Where does Abbott Court stand?
How's it going?
I'm not sure. I knew there was some legal challenges to that approval, and those, I believe, have been settled, basically. But I'm not sure exactly at this point, when that development will proceed.
The 16 to 32 I missed. Are you planning on utilizing this proposed Abbott Court expansion and garage system as part of your parking?
Yes, it was proposed to me to make the swap for our land, to basically square off the development. So Beverly Donovan brought that to me through the developer, and we had numerous meetings a couple years ago. One of the neighbors, there was a dispute that I believe has been settled. So as far as I know, that project is moving forward, but Mrs. Donovan would be probably a much better person to ask on that.
Mr. Mackey, will the planning board have an opportunity to review the parking incorporated with this? I realize this and Abbott Court are two separate parcels. And, I just wanted to make sure that the testimony that we're hearing has some substance to it if we're talking about, if Mr. Burgess is bringing up parking and that's its point of topic.
Yeah, and certainly that would be looked at by planning, and in fact, were this to be approved, where there's really nothing happening on the outside of the building, when it goes for planning board review, I'm assuming that's gonna be the biggest topic that they will look at, Of course, this is in the TBOD, Traditional Business Overlay District, which per our regulations in the Land Development Control Regs, does allow for a combination of on-site and off-site parking, although generally for the off-site parking, you have to have some agreements in place or something concrete that you can show to the planning board in order to satisfy that.
Yeah, in recalling the Abbott Court hearings and the parking design, I've experienced some of the referenced parking experiences in Manchester that were referenced. So they're tight, and I don't want to necessarily throw something into approval without having some validation to it, so thank you. Mr. Burgess, you all set?
I think so for the
Okay,
moment.
Mr. Corbett?
I have a question when we get to the staff report, but nothing for the applicants this time.
Mrs.
have
Moore?
nothing at this
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tripp?
Are there any ADA requirements here?
No, due to the time that the building was built, ADA is exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Donlin, anything?
Not just yet, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good enough. Anything else, gentlemen?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I had just a comment. Is it fair to say that typically, even if you were to grant an approval here, the catch-all for parking would be at planning?
It is, yep.
Okay, all right. So that may or may not weigh in for you guys to...
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes you can get into discussions with the zoning that the zoning board typically doesn't have purview over, but it may have relevance to certain aspects of decision-making, right?
Of course.
It gets hashed out, and so sometimes it could be a fine line, like planning's going to figure out where a dumpster on site goes, but if the zoning board feels like the dumpster is going to obstruct or create odors or something to the neighborhood or butter, it's a relevant point to discuss, but at this point,
Okay.
it's not necessarily the purview of this board to discuss parking as long as we know I think, and I can't speak for Mr. Burgess, but as long as we know that there's something in place for that, I think typically that would satisfy, it satisfies myself. Mr. Burgess can speak for himself, so.
Okay,
Oh,
fair enough.
As long as there's something being worked on, and knowing that that building is going to go up behind them is a wonderful thing for me.
Sure. Anything else?
You know, the last thing we had on that particularly was the amount of single-family dwellings we had in the building and how small they were particularly. And one of the things was that because of what they're trying to do is, you know, most of these 6 new apartments, a lot of these people are gonna be eating downtown, so it's good for the businesses in town as well.
Yeah, regionally, I think one of the things that you hear frequently is those areas that are ancillary or, you know, levels of employment, not key or main, but supportive staff. Certainly, housing prices have started to eliminate those lower levels, so, so it starts to hit on that point. Anyway. Mrs. Moran?
I know parking doesn't weigh heavily at all, but our town parking lots, are there any winter restrictions on them?
Typically for town parking lot, there's no, during the winter months, no overnight parking, and then there's some that's allowed by permit during the warmer months, I believe, so.
I was more nosy than anything.
Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Anything else?
I was under the impression that the parking was by permit during the winter and not during the summer. Of course,
Might be right, I would have to check.
I'm not,
yeah.
I haven't signed any permits, so that was just an anecdote. I do have another question, though.
Mm-hmm.
What is the acreage on this property?
0.314?
0.314?
Did you measure that with rods and chains? The more antiquated
Other-
members of this board would know what
As I said,
rods and
It's not
chains.
0.3141516, right?
So I think that's what I got off the tax card.
Read my mind.
What?
You read my mind.
Anything else, Mr. Tripp?
Not presently.
Okay,
It
All
looks, looks pretty vanilla.
all right.
Isn't that pi, 0.314?
Yeah.
or something?
Oh, boy.
I know. This is serious business here.
Well, with serious
can-
business,
as you
we'll
can
go
tell.
over to code enforcement. Mr. Mackey, if you'd like to give us your thoughts and impressions.
Yeah, so we've established it's in this property, which I'm sure you're all been by a million times, located in the traditional business overlay district, which has some of its own unique set of rules. It's one of the few, if maybe the only district in the zoning ordinance where it actually specifies a number of parking spaces. Typically, in each one of the zones, it'll say per the land development control regulations, but in this particular zone, because it's different than the standard, this gives you a little bit of relief. So when it comes to multifamily, it's typically 1 space per bedroom, not the 1.5 spaces that we typically require under multifamily, but a minimum of 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. So that's why that had to be included as part of the variance request. The other 2 issues, again, is the density in that traditional business overlay district. You're allowed up to, I guess, 40 dwelling units per acre. And if you do the math, again, it was brought out 0.314, and according to Mr. Greg Sack's letter, I guess that equates to a little under 14,000 square feet. So if you do the math, you're over what the density would be allowed. I guess it works out to 12 units or something like that in theory, and so this would be at 16 if you add 8 more units, so. And then lastly, the the square footage of the dwelling units. Again, one of the requirements in traditional business overlay is your dwelling units are a minimum of 750 square feet. And obviously, these would be proposed to be smaller than that in keeping with the existing demising walls and so forth. So that's the relief that's needed. Again, we talked about it is a sprinkled building, obviously, were this to be approved, there would be some planning board review required, and also, when they got through that, there'd be, obviously a building and fire code review, and those particular items would need to be met, and the sprinkler modified as might be required, so.
Okay.
May I ask
Miss-
Mr. Mackey something?
Mr. Burgess?
This is a three-story building, and I thought at one point in time that the.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get the microphone in the wrong place. I thought you had to have an elevator after so many floors.
With an existing building, well, nowadays probably yes,
Yeah.
but with an existing building, unless you get into a high level of renovations
Okay.
based on the cost of the building and the assessed value and whatever, that wouldn't
I
necessarily
figured by
kick
the
in.
1980s, they'd want to throw an elevator in there, but if that it was different back then. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Donovan?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, or, not that it would overly help with the parking situation, but I think we've opined on that quite enough. Was there any thought into maybe a combination of a couple of two-bedrooms and a couple of one-bedrooms instead to kind of ease on that burden of the unit requirements and things such like that?
I would say, with respect to your question, with the way that the demising walls are set up, it would be a major, then you're turning it into a pretty bigger, much bigger project to start taking down those concrete walls in order to achieve 2 bedrooms. So it's probably not cost-effective to try and do that.
So is it fair to say that the black lines in your plan here are those walls, the internal ones?
Yep.
Which page?
Yes, that's correct. Those are the existing to remain demising walls.
So would you justify the same thing if I asked you about the 750 square unit to the 500 square feet per unit? It would be the same reasoning?
I would say so, and I would also add that if we keep the small units that we have the way they are, we're not going to be putting any burden on the school system for the most part. I mean, I've had this building for about 3 years, and they're mostly single or a young couple, making a step into maybe a bigger apartment later. So I think you're going to save a burden on the schools, and it really would. I don't think it would be anybody's best interest to try to make bigger units there.
Thank you.
It's interesting. I remember one time Mr. Ciora speaking about Linloo Drive and how it fit into this community back in 1970-ish, so, right? And, now you're kind of talking about the same thing, that those units, which are probably 2-bedroom units, most of them, right? And, kind of what you're describing fits that same model 50 years ago,
Yeah.
but half the size, so.
Yeah, and it's not my promotion for that. It's just the way it works out.
Right.
We have 2 bedrooms in a lot of different areas, and they draw a different crowd because of the additional bedroom. But because these are smaller apartments, they're usually attracting people that could fit within that unit. And they're very popular. They don't 3rd floor without an elevator. Typically, I would think that it's a distraction or disadvantage, but it really doesn't affect the rentability of the space. People love being downtown.
Yeah.
They love being near everything, walking to, the restaurants, stores.
Yeah,
And,
you could almost say, and I'm not getting into structural details, right? But, it's possible that those block walls, those dividing walls, fire separated as they are, may have a structural component, which, unlike the question on hardship about geography, right? Now you're dealing with the geography of the building, which is those walls are there and you have to kind of fit in between them, and that's kind of the hardship to the geography, so, you know, it's just one of the attorney spins. Mr. Tripp?
I want to touch on parking again. I assume the 16 parking spots are for the rental tenants?
They are for the existing rental tenants, no commercial.
All right, so
Um,
where did the commercial on the first floor park?
They use Derry Public, you know, right out front of the Sabatinos. They use the rear parking lot, you know, because during the daytime, that's pretty much a open game there.
Down Abbott
On
Court.
Abbott Court, yeah. Or on the frontage on Broadway.
Yep.
And I've never seen or heard any issue with commercial units having parking problems.
No.
And on average, just to be frank, the 8 units, I think at any given night, if you drove by Abbott Court, where my parking is between the dumpster and my building, you might have 6 to 8 cars max. I've never had a full parking lot there. Most of the tenants, the households have one vehicle or less.
And looking at the tradition, the idea of 4A, you know, the impact downtown is supposed to lighten up once 4A comes in, which has been kind of the idea to the downtown development for at least better than a decade. And I've been here more than a decade.
Here?
Anything else, Mr. Tripp?
No. So the people on the commercial, they typically use whatever parking is available, and but that's on a different level than community caregivers. What do they use for parking?
Community Caregivers has 2 paved spots right behind their door, right next to their door, just behind the building, and they have a 10 or 15 minute. That's basically people pull in. If you sit there, they pull in, grab or drop off, get back out, and the cars are gumming and going like all day long. But that's the parking that they use. And when they have 3 people at once, that third person usually parks in Abbott Court. It's closest.
Yep. And obviously you have city water, city sewer,
City water, city
gas.
sewer.
You have gas?
We do not have gas in the property. We have gas, but for heating systems. None of the units have gas in them. The apartments are all electric.
Oh. For heating?
There are heating units in all of the units except for the loaner's closet and the first floor commercial spaces are the, I forget, what are they called? They're in, like the hotel in the wall. It's almost like a central heat and air conditioner in one unit.
Oh,
That's on the
No,
commercial level?
Heat pump?
A heat pump?
heat pump.
It's a heat pump of sorts, but it's just a unit. It's almost like an air conditioner sitting in the wall.
Or a mini split?
iTech, or I forget what the name of it is, but it's just a unit that plugs into the wall. It's a 20 amp circuit, and it provides heat and air conditioning for the unit.
Well, good enough. You all
Yeah.
set, Mr. Tripp?
P-Tech.
Yeah, this is
P-TECH.
fairly easy, because it's all internal.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dietzel, you need anything? Got anything there?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, everybody on my right, you all set?
Got one from Mr. Mackey.
Very good.
Bob, looking at it, you can do the maximum of the 40 units per acre. If we've got 8 on the 12 units per acre. If this is gonna push over to the 40, would that mean it's already non-conforming with the 8 that are there?
I think if you do, it's 40 units per acre that are allowed. So if you do the proportion, you do it proportionally with the, whatever the lot, the 13, just under 14,000 square feet. Based on the 40 square units per acre, you don't have an acre, you only have 14,000. And then if you do the math, that equates to 12 acres 12 units that you would, in theory, be allowed. So I guess right now, with 8 units, they would be conforming, but they're looking to add 8 more. So that way, they'd be at 16, where 12 would actually be allowed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Mr. Corbett?
I'm good.
All right, very good. If you gentlemen have nothing else, we'll make a call to public. So we'll make a call to public. Anybody who wishes to support this application, this would be your opportunity to come forward. You may note on the screen that we have some phone numbers. If you're remote and wish to speak on this matter, phone number is 646-558-8656. At the prompting, just enter the meeting ID number, which is 323-909-140. In the event you're having a technical problem, please dial 845-5585, and the clerk will help direct you back into the meeting. That being said, this call was for anyone who wishes to support this application to come forward. Seeing no gestures, we'll make a call to anyone who wishes to oppose this application. This would be your opportunity to come forward as well and be heard. Seeing no one rise there, Mr. Provencher, you have anybody out there in the remote world?
Seeing none yet rise, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So we'll consider ourselves that we've made the call and met the statutes for public input. Therefore, we can move.
I move that we go into deliberative session.
Very good. Mr. Burgess makes that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Corbett makes a second. You gentlemen are all set your testimony at this point?
We are, yes.
Very good. Okay, that motion is seconded. All in favor of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Anybody wish to lead off on the discussions?
Typically, I don't love an application that comes before us that requires so many reliefs within a variance, but this one makes a lot of sense. I think this is a good proposal. I like the thoughts, for an increase of the 1-bedroom apartments. I feel this specific proposal more likely aligns with what the economic committees have been trying to do with town council and have been trying to propose. I think this fits, the comment about not adding a burden to the school system, I think is important. And I do agree it's not something that you're really going to notice. Hopefully they're able to work out the parking situation with the Abbott Court. But otherwise, I'm okay with, a relief on that as well.
Mr. Tripp? Mr. Burgess, you want to speak? Go ahead.
Either way, it's okay.
Gentlemen, whenever. Flip
Fight
a
it out.
coin.
Go ahead. I'll wait.
Well, like I said, this is a good use of the building, I believe, Right now, you're using the second floor for office space, putting another 8 apartments in sounds like a good idea. I haven't been watching what the rental rates are, but I'm sure that it's significant due to the inflation and everything else. You have the parking, which is good. You already have apartments that are the same criteria, what are you gonna be putting in? There's the issue of 16 being more than 12, but that I don't think is, that's why you're here, right? Other than that, I don't see any problems, or I don't have anything that needs to be added for conditions or whatever.
All right, very good. Mr. Burgess?
I think the floor design is wonderful. A lot more space there than you expect for that kind of footage. The way they've got it lined up. So it really is, like I said in the last thing we had, and another part of town would say no to this. But because of its location to the downtown area and it's all single apartments, it makes sense. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna say that's a good idea.
Very good. Mrs. Moore?
I agree with what everyone has stated. I understand the one bedrooms being important too, where it's directly over the business. You don't want a two-bedroom, someone like me and my 10 kids over your head when you're getting your hair washed, so I don't have 10 kids.
Very good.
But you need to keep it within,
Reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I like the fact that there's this recognition towards impact to services, and you've got this growing population that can't move out of their parents' basements, and I'm one of them. I still live in my parents' basement. I have a 34-year-old at home, so, we hear that trend and that transition going on in society, so.
Do you want a rental app? I'm just kidding.
Well, we'll discuss that later. So I like how this fits, and I think that it mirrors a project that the town council, in conjunction with planning, have been trying to get to as well. So if they're not quite there yet, I think that's the direction they've been trying to go, as testimony from 2 years ago on Abbott Court would have suggested. So that being the case, I certainly, I like the project. So anyway, let's structure the motion. We have subject to obtaining all state town permits and inspections, and planning board review as well. And are there any other conditions or concerns anybody on the board might have had? No. Seeing no gestures there, so I think that structures the motion, and we can come out of deliberation.
I'll make the move to come out of deliberative session.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Corbett, you want to help there?
I'll second.
And Mr. Corbett has a second. All in favor of coming out of deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran, you have a motion to read.
I do, thank you. I make a motion on case number 24-102, Steve Pasco, owner, FTG Development, LLC, to grant a variance to the terms of Article 6, Section 165-49.B.1.A and C, and Section 165-49.G.1.A of the Town of Derry zoning ordinance to allow the conversion of the 8 existing commercial units located on the second floor to 8 one-bedroom dwelling units at 6 West Broadway, parcel ID 30024, zoned TBOD, as presented with the following conditions. We have 2. 1, subject to obtaining all state and town permits and inspections. 2, subject to planning board site review. And that concludes the reading of a motion. I need a second, please.
Second.
Mr. Tripp has a second. That puts that motion on the floor. And let's read in the finding of facts.
Finding a fact for case 24-102. The board also includes all facts found in the meeting minutes for this application and incorporates all meeting minutes into its finding of facts and decisions. The board found that the property is located in the traditional business overlay district, which allows for multi-unit residential use and a mixed use in conjunction with permitted non-residential use. The applicants are requesting a variance to allow the second story of the 3-story building to be converted from 8 commercial spaces to 8 one-bedroom units. The applicants are seeking relief in regards to the unit square footage, the density of the units allowed on the lot, and the number of parking spaces.
Very good. Anybody have any additions or changes to the finding of fact? Seeing no gestures there, all in favor of moving this for a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mrs. Moran,
Chair, I vote yes.
Mr. Corbett,
I vote yes.
Mr. Tripp,
I vote yes.
Mr. Burgess.
I vote yes also.
All right, and the chair will make it unanimous, reflecting the board's deliberations in this matter. Anybody who has aggrieved by this decision has 30 days to ask for a rehearing or reconsideration. Other than that, gentlemen, congratulations on your application, and good luck going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good
board.
luck.
Appreciate it.
Oh, can I say about where I lived when I didn't live in my,
Gentlemen, hang on to your seat.
You want
This
to
is
know where
gonna be
Richard
good.
lived?
I never lived in my parents' basement. I lived on my uncle's ship, you know,
Is what?
on my uncle's ship.
Yes, Uncle Sam, thank you for your service. And thank you for that warm and inviting story. I'm sure there's many more before the evening's out.
Oh, crazy.
All right, that being all set, we're gonna, next case, Mr. Corbett, thank you. I'll step down for an alternate, and you can run this show. You have your finding of fact, and you have your, all your phone numbers intact.
I am ready to go.
All right, you have it. Here's your gavel. Everybody
Not
watch
the
it.
important stuff. All right, Mr. Donlin, would you mind replacing Mr. Perkins?
No, sir.
All right. So that we're going to call up case 24-103. I mock Lynn all the time for this, but I apologize. Applicant Lynn Calagero. All right, please come on up for Peak Premises LLC. Evening, what we'll have you do is just speak your, introduce yourself, and then you'll just read the application, the 5 criteria in for the record, and then we'll let you expand however you would like to.
Very well. Good evening, Board, Derry neighbors. My name is Lynn Calagero. I'm the managing member of Peak Premises. We are celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We have done many remodels and builds in the town of Derry, but we don't just develop here, we live here, and we care about this town. We care about how it looks and how it feels to live here. I'm bringing a variance application to you today for 27 Mount Pleasant, and I will read my 5 points. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the outcome of 2 8,250 square foot single-family lots will conform to the majority of the single-family lots on the street, having area greater and frontage greater than some single-family and duplex lots. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because no additional units will result from its previous use. Substantial justice is done because we purchased a duplex but subsequently learned that the structure forfeited its grandfathered status. This request is simply restoring to an improved version of where it was. The values of the surrounding properties are not diminished because the existing structure is a stigmatized property due to its recent history, fundamentally redefining its use while maintaining conformity to the surrounding properties is beneficial to the community. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. For purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. The lot as it stands is larger than 100% of single-family lots on the street, 88% of duplex properties, and 67% of triplex properties. However, if we were to rebuild under the current code, we would only be able to build a single-family residence, losing 1 unit. The proposed use is a reasonable one. Derry is short on housing inventory. People want to live in this community, but houses are hard to come by. This plan will contribute to a solution while helping the community move forward from a sad chapter. If the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if and only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is necessary to enable a reasonable use of it. This property has sat vacant for almost 3 years, creating a unique situation where it lost its grandfathered 2-unit status. Had this not happened, we would not be seeking a variance. Purchasing a duplex and then learning we only had a single family is a hardship. And I have a little bit of additional information.
Absolutely, floor is yours.
We acknowledge that we have a short setback between number 27 and the proposed new lot. This is consistent throughout the neighborhood. If you drive through the neighborhood or you look at the tax maps, you will see that the properties truly are on the line. The frontage that we would end up with if this petition is granted is comparable to 37.5% of the properties on Mount Pleasant. But you could actually make an argument that it is comparable to 96% of the houses on the street, because only one house on the street conforms to current zoning for frontage. The area is comparable to about 42% of the properties on Mount Pleasant, but the argument can be made that it's comparable to 50%, again, due to the fact that they do not conform to the current zoning. What we would like to do with number 27 is repurpose the foundation if our petition is granted, where we would raise the existing house, eliminating something of a blight on the neighborhood, and build in the existing foundation if it proves to be viable after a thorough inspection once the house is raised. The proposed house for the new lot, the plan that was submitted with the application, does not actually use the entire width of that building envelope. It leaves a little bit of room, so it's not overwhelming. And finally, I would like to point out that the numbering of these houses on the street alone suggest this makes sense. We go from 27 to 31. These houses were built back in 1900. Who's to say, 1900. Who's to say that there wasn't a 29 there once upon a time 100 years ago?
Thank you. And is the rendering included within the packet? Is that what you guys are looking to build here, or is that just a?
That is the proposed house for the subdivision. That would be number 29.
Okay.
That would be on the existing lot?
That would be on the new lot.
New lot.
That house is a 1,358
Okay.
square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house. It's got a footprint of 18 by 48. And I call your attention to the subdivision plan that Lavelle developed. If you look at the way these lots are defined, it's exactly the way the neighborhood already looks. Likewise, you can see it in the tax map.
Thank you. I'll open it up to some questions from the board. I'll start to my far right with Mr. Dietzel. Jim, do you have anything to kick us off tonight?
No, thank you, Mr. Carpet.
All right, Mr. Burgess?
Could you get back to me?
No. Over to Ms. Moore?
I have a quick question for Mr. Mackey. The GIS has it labeled as a two-family still.
Right, the structure that still remains on the property, it's been vacant for, I guess, 3 years. It was assessed as a two-family. That structure's still sitting there. It sustained significant damage in a fire. So I suspect, I mean, I haven't been in it, but I suspect, we probably know more than I do, but it's probably not salvageable economically.
I
So-
remember the fire now that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
The property has a sad history.
And Mr. Tripp?
All righty. So once again, how many square feet is the current lot?
The current lot is 16,000 feet. Let me see, I have the original one here too.
Survey calls it out as 16,500.
Yes, thank you.
And the side lots are, you said
They'd be 8250 each.
8250 each. Wow. imagine that.
It's a good-sized lot, nice yard.
Well, consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So all you're asking, well, let's see.
So there is town water and sewer then?
Yes, there is.
So you're asking for 4 variances?
I think it's 3.
I'm detecting that there's 4 contradictions there.
Got a lot size, frontage requirements, and then setback from the side setback, so I think it's 3.
Side setback for the existing house if it's subdivided, yes. But
Cool.
again, I point attention to like number 25 is right on the line as are all the houses right down the street.
So what we're discussing, we're not actually discussing the lots that are on the side. Is that correct?
Pardon, one more time?
There's the big lot in the middle,
Yes, that's the one.
and then there's 2 lots on the side.
No, it's just one lot,
Just one lot. All right,
16,500
that's-
square feet.
That's what I was trying to get
Yes,
straight
and I'm
in my
looking to go
mind.
just right down the middle.
Well, you've got the 2 lots on the side shown, so the
On-
purpose was just for comparison.
Yep. The page before in the handout shows it as it is now. And then the proposed subdivision splits that large lot down the middle.
Yeah.
And you can see the lots on 25 and 31 on either side and how it
So you're asking for
conforms.
lot size and setbacks. And what else?
Frontage.
Frontage.
And with that, I don't want to call it confusion, but with that question, I'm now going to take the opportunity to kick it to Mr. Mackey for the staff report, who I think could shine a little bit more light on that for us.
Okay.
Yeah, so, again, property MHDR, medium high density residential, which for 1 and 2 family dwellings has a lot size requirement of 10,000 square feet and 100 feet of frontage if the property is serviced by town water and town sewer, which this property is. It was alluded to that the existing 2-family that's there, basically because it sat vacant and abandoned for 3 years, it would need to be reestablished as a 2-family, it would need to be 20,000 square feet. So that's why it's now non-conforming, because it's 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit that's required. So the variances that they're looking for here to make this subdivision would be to lot area, because each of the lots will be 8,000 square feet and change, not the 10. And then I believe they're both proposed to be about 50 square feet of frontage, where 100 feet would be required. Also, our ordinance not only deals with frontage, they talk about lot width. So again, this won't have the 100, which is basically the same as the frontage requirement. So that's why the lot width is in there. And then lastly, because they're proposing to keep the foundation of the existing building while establishing a new lot line that won't be more than 15 feet away from that structure, they need a variance from the setback. So I hope that makes clear what there's. So it's lot area, it's the frontage and lot width, and then the setback for the existing building, because you're now creating a new lot line to split that lot into 2, if
In
that
half.
makes sense, okay? And I think, obviously, were this to be granted, planning board subdivision approval would be required. Again, the requirements for MHDR, the 10,000 square feet, the 8,000 being provided, serviced by water and sewer. So, I guess that's it.
If I could, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Perkins.
Did the loss of the 2-family happen because of the conversion within the building?
No,
No.
just because of the amount of time that it's sat vacant.
I see.
And basically, the use was abandoned, which, again, per our rules, when it deals with that, is if it's abandoned more than a year, if you haven't, in this case, it would have been a non-conforming lot.
Right.
And that it was 16,000 and change as opposed to the 20,000. And if it sits, if that use is abandoned for more than a year, then essentially it reverts to today's zoning.
But it's almost like a
essentially.
conditional use permit, so to speak.
Yeah.
How was this unit divided originally as a two-family, as a duplex?
Hard to say, it's so destroyed inside. I went in there briefly. I believe it was one unit downstairs and one unit upstairs.
How many bedrooms do you know?
I could not tell you.
I can't remember. Oh,
Did you say you thought it was 5 bedrooms?
I was, yep, it's 5 bedrooms altogether.
According
is
to
what-
the assessor's information, it says 5 bedrooms, 2 units, 5 bedrooms.
So if you had to tear this down anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna have to raise it, why not just keep it as a duplex
You can't,
the way it was, as opposed to trying to make 2 separate lots? Because you're going from 4 infractions, you'd probably narrow it down to 1 or 2 infractions if you just kept it all in the same footprint as it's been.
We could. That could be an option for us. In looking at the neighborhood itself, the single families with the subdivision just seem to conform to the houses around it better. And you can see that on the subdivision plan.
How many bedrooms are you making each house, or is your plan there?
We can keep it at the 5 if that's part that's
Well,
would
I guess
help.
my point is that you're going from a rental unit, a duplex, right? Trying to spread it out, meet a lot more nonconformity, and increasing essentially 2 full-size residential homes as opposed to, an accessory dwelling or something of that nature. I guess that's where my question's going.
I'm not sure if it was an accessory dwelling, if it's substantial size, if it's a 2-bedroom. I don't know if it exceeds the 800 square feet. I'd have to go look up that, but
Yeah, and
Now,
I'm
is
just
it-
using the ADU as an example, not necessarily specific. I mean, I'm not saying to you build one single-family, 3-bedroom, and then put an accessory on it. I understand what you were looking at when you purchased it, though the due diligence becomes questionable, especially if you do this on a full-time basis, correct? But to me, a three-bedroom unit on the first floor, 2-bedroom on the second floor fits that 5-bedroom unit, and then you're not putting 2 full-size, brand-new homes on 2 tight lots with 4 nonconformities to it. You're free to answer to that, and I don't mean to pigeonhole you, but that's what's working in my head right now.
Well, we figured if we had to come before the board and request a variance, that we would request something that looked like the neighborhood. And so I just bring it back to that if you look at the tax map or if you look at the subdivision plan, that there are lines of single-family houses on lots that have the same area and the same frontage.
Sure, and I understand that. Mr. Mackey, we've had cases before, maybe you can refresh my memory about averaging setbacks. What is that rule? Do you know?
Basically, you can look at the structures within 300 feet of either side of the property and take an average of the front setback and build to that average, essentially.
So, and I understand what you're saying in that light that Mr. Mackey has just expressed, and that certainly makes sense if that rule of averaging setbacks exists and fitting this to that ideal. But it doesn't erase the fact that you're trying to put 2 new residential structures out of conformity and asking for the abundance of 4 non-conforming issues versus 1 or 2. So that's my diatribe. I rest. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burtis?
I think I hearken back to the last time it was on a case, and that was back when we had a similar situation in my neighborhood. And since I grew up in Lawrence and I had a 3-decker in Lawrence, and a plot was 50 feet wide. I know what it feels like to be in in a house like that. It's very, I can't think of a good word to say, but it's difficult because you're so close on either side of the property. And the zoning rules are put in so that you don't do overcrowding like they did in Lawrence. I mean, you know, back in those days, back when these houses were built originally in the 1900s, there was no zoning ordinance, so they could do whatever they wanted pretty much. So that's the reason for the ordinance. I agree with Mr. Mr. Perkins that, you know, if we're gonna go and do something non-conforming, it'd be better to do it the way it was previously, rather than try to build a whole new lot out of it. There's my 2 cents.
I think that is good. Does anybody else at the board have any questions at this time before we go to the public input? Seeing none, so this time we'll open up to public input. We'll go to those first in support, followed by anyone who may be in opposition. What we'll do is we'll start off with anybody in attendance who would like to join, but those at home who wish to dial in, what we'll ask is that you dial 646-558-8656. Your meeting ID is 323-909-140, and you press *9 to raise your hand. Anybody having any technical issues, dial 603-845-5585, and someone will help you out. So looking around, anybody in the audience who wishes to come up in support? Seeing none rise at this time. Oh, and anyone online?
Seeing none online, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none there. So anybody in attendance in opposition who wish to come up, it'll be your time.
Yep.
Please come on up.
Come on up. Come on down.
What we'll ask is just introduce yourself, name and address for the record, and then speak.
My name's Ross Curran. I live at 33 Mount Pleasant Street, so 2 houses down. She says she bought the property to then find out later that the 2-family couldn't be rebuilt the way it was. And the listing online when she purchased it said that it was buyers should do their own due diligence and contact the town to find out what needs to be done for this building to be occupied again. So I feel like if she had contacted the town before purchasing it, they probably would have informed her that the 2-family had expired, rather than come up now and saying that she found out afterwards. So I don't think the due diligence on that aspect of it was done.
Understood. With that said, if the proposal was to come back, you know, for a non-conforming 2-family to be put in its place, would that be anything that you would object or support or have any opinion on, regardless?
To build on the same foundation or to do a 2-family like that, yeah, that I'm okay with that.
Okay.
It's just like Don Burgess commented, living on a 50-foot wide lot, as I do, it's intimate with your neighbors. At night when your lights are on, you better pull your blinds down because there's nothing private that somebody looking out their window can do. And
Yeah, I could have quite.
building a house on a 50-foot wide lot, it doesn't leave you much space between the house next door to you. So I would rather see a 2-family on the same foundation or likewise be put there rather than 2 separate houses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody else, come on down. There you go. And last, same thing, just your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name's Anne Marie McCool. I live at 25 Mount Pleasant Street, right next door. I just had like a couple of questions, like if they were to build 2 houses, how many bedrooms there'd be in each one? And what did you say, that each be like only 800 square feet?
No, so the new proposed house would be 19 by 38. It would be a 3-bedroom. The square footage of each property would be about 8,250, so 8,250. It did not sound like there had been a decision on the existing dwelling, so I don't want to make an assumption. But what we got for the proposed would be a new 3-family house going in.
Yeah, well, sorry. It's really, I don't know, being that big, and, you know, with the water and sewer, is that gonna have an effect on the neighbors? You know, having them dig up the street and for to add water and sewer for a new house. Also, it would be a burden on the schools if families move in. And so they would probably have the two houses identical, like across, right next door to each other?
I would say that's probably a fair assumption, but I don't want to speak for them, because we just saw the proposed one, but if I had to guess, that would be kind of the image in my head. The one comment I would go back to for the school system, it would just go to the last one I made, where it was previously a multifamily going in, so if it were replaced with a multifamily, I do think the same, you'd probably be looking at
But
the
there
same
was no-
stressor
It was just, it was a multifamily, but only the one family lived there.
at the time.
Yep, for the whole time.
Yeah. So obviously if it were something like that, we wouldn't be able to control, how many were in, but I think it's worth noting, regardless. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak to what would happen with the second of the two houses, but when they come back up, we can ask for more of an idea on that.
And I don't know if this is relevant or anything, but would they be doing anything, because there's one tree that's on their property, but like, they did cut down some of the branches last year, the bank did. But I mean, are they gonna remove some of these trees that are in that yard by any chance?
That would be outside of our purview, but something, I'm sure they heard the question that they may speak to when they come back up.
Yeah,
But not
good.
something that I can unfortunately ask, because it wouldn't play into anything that we can rule on either way.
Yeah, like the two pine trees and that other tree.
2 pine trees and the other ones are catching your eye.
Yeah, I might have a change of mind if they go.
I have a question.
Yes,
Are you in favor of the variances or opposed?
right now I'm opposed. I would prefer to see like a one big single-family home. Opposed to two of them squished in. I mean, our houses are on the street pretty close, but they're not as close as I think it would be as squishing two houses on that one lot.
Yeah.
Because I know I have, enough space between my house for both the neighbors, and I just think they're gonna be squished in.
Yeah, what, you probably have a single 8,000 plus lot, which had the house built on it.
I don't know, my house is right next door.
Yeah,
I have,
yep. But
I
it was,
think
it
it's
was built,
less than a quarter of an
it was
acre
built
maybe.
as intended on the lot, whereas this house, or this property, is 2 lots, and it was kind of built off to the side, which is what causes the problem right now with the setbacks, so, was the fire exciting when they had it?
Actually, no, my son tried to kick through the 3 doors to save them. I was really good friends with them.
Yeah.
I tried to go in the house and save them. It was just horrendous. And it kind of traumatized us for like over a year and a half. I mean, the following Easter Sunday,
Yeah.
my kids wouldn't even come down to the house just because it was, bad memories.
Thank you.
Because he shot his wife and then burnt the house down and shot himself.
It's crazy. Next question, Mr. Tripp.
Oh.
Anybody else at this time? All right.
Seeing none online, Mr. Chair.
With that, we can ask you guys to come back up and you can speak to any of the concerns that have been voiced.
When I say this house had a sad history, it had a very sad history. This house needs to come down. Anything that can be done to fundamentally change this house and the memories that it brings back to everybody who has to drive by it every day to drop their kids off at school, something needs to be done. And we're willing to do it, and we're willing to work with the neighborhood to make it something that they can feel better about. If it's a matter of taking down trees to make a neighbor happy, we will take down the trees. Again, I bring back the subdivision plan. If you look at that and you look at the tax map, the houses are north justified on these lots. They all have a very small setback on the left side of them as you're looking at the street, and larger on the right side. If it would help to remove one of the variances that we're asking for, we don't need to repurpose that foundation. We can put it in a building envelope that meets all the setbacks the same way as the new lot that we're requesting. That one meets the front and the side setbacks. The other thing I'd like to mention about small lots is these have a very deep backyard. It's not a crowded feel because they have a lot of space to them in the backyard. As far as bedroom count, if that is a concern for the board and for the neighborhood, we can commit to keeping the bedroom count the same as it was before, so that we don't increase any burden on the schools, we don't increase any burden on the traffic. So we would have the 3-bedroom on the new lot and keep to a 2-bedroom on the existing. And finally, I want to speak to the due diligence and the fact that the listing did say that you had to make sure, check with the town about occupancy, that could easily have been interpreted as the fact that this house was pretty much burned down. It's not like you can buy the house and move right in. So that's what we interpreted that as.
A question, one of the first points that you brought up of potentially not working within the existing footprint and mimicking what we're going to do, or what you would be doing at with the proposed dwelling. So if you were to put in two of these, one in either property, you think at lot 54 we could fit within the setback requirements on the side and the frontage?
It would. You can see it in the subdivision plan.
And personally, I would like that proposal more than what I'm looking at. I'd probably get into it more in deliberative, but I think that's something I think would at least ease some of my concerns.
Can you repeat what you said? I was writing. I'm
Sorry, what was brought up was that there's an alternative solution that they could propose would be to, rather than keeping the existing dwelling where it is, which is causing the side setback along with the frontage, that they could instead place a new house there, designed like the one at lot 51-1, that 19 by 38, that would then meet the frontage and the setback requirements, leaving it both with the square footage requirements, which aren't as much of one, but perhaps would, in my opinion, for a subdivision would work better than, the current proposal. Not that it would be a guarantee, but I think that would have a stronger chance if I had to guess.
I would agree with you. Because then you've only got like one variance instead of 4, which makes it a much better, easier lift.
And my question to Mr. Perkins or to Mr. Mackey in a situation of that, whereas an alternative solution could be proposed, the proper way to handle introducing that, would it be to table at this point to have something drawn up and brought back to us as an alternative proposal, or would it have to be a second, would we have to complete this process and then have a second proposal come through?
With a sunset.
I'm just trying to think if you could address that as a condition, that, that both lots, if approved, that both lots, both dwellings constructed would need to meet the required setbacks for that district, which would be the 15 feet side and rear and so forth. And remove perhaps out of the motion that section that's cited when you read the motion. Don't cite that section that deals with the setback relief. I think you could handle it that way.
What I would like to see, and I'll propose this, what I would like to see, what I would propose to the board, rather than continue, would be to kind of table this, but so that we could see a markup of that proposal, that shows, I could draw it up, I can kind of have an idea, but one that would show that alternative solution that would eliminate the setbacks, as far as the frontage, and also kind of mimic that. Then I think we kind of bring it back whether it's the next meeting or in 2 meetings, and then complete this. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
I agree.
I agree as well. I'd rather see something that doesn't have the 4 different ones, especially with neighbors not happy.
Mr. Donlin, Mr. Burgess, do you guys have any objections to that?
No, sir.
I still don't like the 50 feet width.
No,
width, you know,
so I still don't see any concern with that, but
Yeah.
I'd at least like to see a little more of a,
More space? Yeah, anytime you get more space, the better off you are.
so what I'll do, Ms. Lynn, if you don't mind, what we'll do is we'll officially table this for tonight. We'll set up for the next meeting if you can, if you guys just mark up some photos or some, another depiction for us detailing that alternative solution, then we'll kind of review both of them at that meeting and try to make a determination
Okay.
from there.
Will do.
So with that, I think I will need to make a motion to table this for our next meeting.
I'll make the motion to table it till our next meeting.
I will second it.
Motion for Mr. Burgess and a second from Ms. Moran. All in favor of the tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so with that, we will table case 24-1003. We will pick this up as soon as possible.
On the 3rd Thursday. of
Just
February.
one comment, Mr. Chair, for the abutters, anybody that wants to know, because you've tabled it to a date certain, there won't be another notice going out, so
The 3rd Thursday in February,
Yep,
it
so
would be February
15th.
17th?
No,
Is it?
15th.
15th?
15th.
Okay. 16th,
15.
15.
15th.
February
okay.
15th.
1 plus
7 o'clock.
14.
One is 15.
If the numbers change, it's always the 3rd Thursday and the 1st.
Yeah, but it should be the 15th at 7 o'clock. We should come back here.
Would it be better for them to wait for a second until the beginning of the next month? To
What?
get be able to put the plans together. 2 weeks might not be enough.
I would say,
Yeah, I would think.
yeah, if,
It's what they do for a job, so they
Might
should.
not hurt to ask them if they think they
yeah,
can
do you
get a
think you can meet
plan.
the 15th or, yeah,
You sure? Okay. I just wanted to give them enough time.
appreciate your the empathy there.
Ooh.
All right, so with that, I will hand it back over to Mr. Perkins.
Watch my fingers with that. All right, very good. Next order of business, other business or correspondence, we do have our semi-monthly Town City Magazine.
Yay.
Anybody would like to read that, you're welcome to. Okay. And then we have approval of minutes for January 4th. Does anybody have a motion for that? Anybody have any changes they needed for that? See no changes
Approve as submitted.
and no appeals.
I'll
Very
check
good.
that.
Yay.
We'll have a motion to take the minutes as presented.
Yeah, I made that motion.
And I will second it.
You did make that motion? Oh, you did, okay.
So did I.
Mrs. Moran has a second. All in favor of the minutes as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. I think that about wraps up our meeting for this evening, and we have one, and then the retread coming back to us, I believe, right?
We have, what do we have now? 2? Well, the third one.
Okay,
3, and this one, so
good enough.
picking back up again.
We went a very long stretch there.
Yep.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. All right, if no one else has any other business, we can take a motion to.
I'll make that motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Very good, and Mr. Corbett has a second, so all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll see everybody after Valentine's Day. Have a good evening. We're adjourned.